All right, all right. Welcome everybody to yet another Trino Tuesday. Today I am joined by I'm gonna say if I butcher your name, but it's Ivo, right?
Yeah, it's
Okay. Okay.
correct.
I was pretty sure I was pronouncing it right this whole time and that you would have corrected me had I been wrong, but I also was just like, maybe you're really polite, Evo. So could you tell us a little bit about your background, what you're doing, and kind of how you were using Trino up until I guess a couple months ago?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Ivo. I started my professional career at VMware. I'm located in Sofia, Bulgaria, where is the third biggest office of VMware. So I joined a very big project, which was about building a whole new data analytics system. And my team was responsible for the storage part. So we were building a data lake there, and this is where we basically use Trino. We use Trino as our query engine.
Nice.
And later on, I worked on other services, but right now I'm working on database management service, no more in big data.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it seems like there was a bit of scale back in general across the board. Like you see a lot of people kind of, you know, what what that kind of redefining like what the actual needs are and requirements are for a particular set of projects, and a lot of that included like, hey, like we'll just do everything on Postgres now, you know. Uh, so, anyways, okay, so and then Jan, welcome back. We're glad to have you again. We're basically just gonna jump back into some PR reviews again. I think so Evo's been along, has been here since for the first two Trino Tuesdays, and so just wanted to bring you on and get your suggestions on what we should be doing. Kind of want to keep these as like super interactive as possible and low effort. Without further ado, let's just kind of hop right into. Let me see. We had. There we go. I want to start off. I want to start off kind of in numerical order. So I'm going to start presenting my screen. Give me a second here, and there we go. There it is. All right. Let's zoom in here a little bit. So what do we have here? And I actually, I'm trying a new thing out. I looked at the previous PRs in last episodes. I actually have not even like looked at these. So this is going to be my first time, probably Jan's first time. Evo, did you look at these at all to kind of review?
No, my plan was to look at them, but I just didn't have the chance and time to look.
Perfect. I mean, the whole idea of this is that we're actually like taking, kind of getting our first perspective on this thing, anyways, and kind of trying to see these things. So I don't have any background on this. So this is like like coding, like in the code reviews where you have to like go up and like draw on whiteboard and say everything that you're thinking in your head. I think that's kind of what I want these to be like a little bit. Is like so what are we thinking about? So group provider properties. I guess we are enabling this group provider capability. So this file right here, which is under etc group provider.properties, I'm guessing we are making that available in the Helm chart with these. So last couple ones we've gone through and actually set up, a couple reviews around Helm chart before. So and basically we're trying to get a couple extra reviews in so that Ashar, once he's fully back and caught up with everything, he'll have a couple extra reviews on the Helm chart to get things rolling along. We're really wanting to kind of expose how we do and kind of like at least between three people that actively work in the project. What are things that you look for, or actively work in the project? I guess Evo, you were more of a user of the project, but you know enough, I think, to kind of be just dangerous to be able to kind of give your insights on this. So I think it's good to kind of have people that are at different levels or have different vantage points of what's going on and what's important and how we make decisions here, because it's you can even ask any question that you want and it's going to be very valuable, because maybe other people who are just seeing this kind of stuff for the first time will also have those questions, right? So cool. So obviously, you know, in README, we're going to include a group provider. I guess this is like a group provider field that will be kind of one of the values parameters, and it looks like it's just an object. So let's dive into like what that actually looks like. And it looks like, yeah, basically kind of what we had done in the last one where we talked about just making it a string. We're basically just, you know, what you WYSIWYG kind of style, like you set this whole entire file as a string. So it's not like you're going to do something where, oh, group provider name equals to, and then you make this a parameter. It's actually the entire file itself is a parameter. And I think, Jan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that this is pretty much what we've seen across the board everywhere else, except for a couple places that we need to get consistent with this style of setting files, correct?
Yep. Is there more to it, or because I see that we're adding a new parameter in the values, and the thing that pops up comes to my first question that comes to my mind is this introduces adds some properties, and so this basically builds a new API for defining those group providers in the chart.
Yeah.
This can cause backward compatibility issues in the future if Trino changes anything around that. So I wonder if we can simplify this, if we can just allow users to provide the contents of this group provider file, basically making it easier to mount a new file in the etc directory.
Oh yeah, because you're talking about this particular setup right here. Instead of having all these parameters, why not just make the entire thing just one giant string?
Yeah, because it adds a lot to the chart. Like, we should document it in the chart. We should think about how to test it properly in the chart. If we only allow users to provide contents of the group provider properties file, we can just refer to the Trino docs, and that's it. That would be much simpler. And we would keep a single source of truth, like keep the Trino docs the main reference.
Yeah, and you also be consistent, right?
Yes. That would apply to any kind of configuration file for Trino. So that's why I asked if there's anything more, because there's some more like explanation for this, like why this the author of this PR suggests adding something like this. Maybe, I don't know, maybe this is some very common use case that's actually valuable, but let's just see the rest of the PR.
Yeah. Okay. And sure, backwards. Moving forward. Anything else I missed? I know I was trying to keep up. So I think this looks pretty good. Let's consider if we should actually add these parameters instead of just a single parameter that would encompass the entire file. Sure, backward. I want to say backwards compatibility.
Make it easier to maintain backward compatibility.
Easier to maintain compatibility.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then and then just ask the.
And you can start a review, because so it's not going to post this comment.
Yeah, not right away.
So, yeah, that's just finishing checking the whole PR.
Yep. Okay. Cool. So the next thing, so this is going to be setting up some of these configs. It looks like they have group provider type config map, and this will.
Yeah, it's to store the group definitions in an additional config map and point to it in the main configuration, main properties file.
It looks like you can just do a whole bunch of just generic like key value store kind of stuff here, and depending on the group provider that you're using, so they'll mean different things, I guess. It's saying to quote the value in the so this, I don't think this actually has too much risk, like of needing to be changed. I think the generic key value seems to be like one of the main things. Essentially, just giving a key value. I don't imagine that will be something that will move around too much. Essentially, like, and it actually gives you a little bit of range of flexibility in terms of being able to define it in the okay, you disagree?
So I'm just thinking. So we're okay. So we're defining a config map with all the groups, and then we gonna how we gonna mount this config map. So we have to find how it's being used.
Let's see. Come right here. So group provider volume, group provider, and then so it's if group provider and if the type is config map, do this. And so that's just adding the config map, and then the mount is done here by group provider volume. So this happens if there's a group provider. Oh, wait, hold on.
That's fine. That's fine.
Is it? Okay. I was thinking this.
I mean, you don't see the whole file, so like we're
okay.
We don't see under which section that can actually be a different section than what we see above.
Okay.
Okay, so there is a complete example of how to use it.
Yeah. So here's the custom properties. Let me see something real fast. Hold on. Spider type. Go back here. This is saying groups. Where's the groups? Oh, here's the groups. Okay. I see it. And then where's custom properties being used? Okay. Oh, it's down here. Okay. So that just spits out the literal mapping here. Okay.
So it's breaking the convention a little bit because like we can see below this that there are additional node properties and additional config properties. So I would assume to see something like additional group provider properties, but it's getting a little bit out of hand, like having things like having very long names like this. And so for on one hand, this is not following the convention we have. On the other hand, if we would follow the convention, it would make it a like maybe unnecessarily complex.
Yeah. Yeah, because it would be what, additional group provider properties.
Also, can we go back to how we're mounting this file? So we just basically we allow defining file names, and we have to reference them again in the same values YAM file. I don't know if having custom file names is beneficial in this case, if we always have to reference this file in the group provider properties file.
I'm not following.
If you go back to values on the bottom, yeah, and you see the example here. Like there's a config file property setting like with the groups text file.
Yeah,
and then we have the groups dictionary with groups text and its content in the values. Yeah.
Oh, you're in the value. Okay, I was like,
Yeah.
Wait, is it here?
No.
All right.
So like
Yeah.
you have a full example how to use it.
Full example here. Correct.
Yeah.
All right.
So like this allows users to specify the config file name, and I'm just wondering why. Like, why would it allow to create multiple groups with using different file names, but only reference a single one of them?
Where's the groups one again? Here, is it up here? So here's where the groups is used. Key value.
Yeah, so you have a single config map with possibly multiple files in it,
Yeah.
with any kind of contents,
Yeah.
and you allow to mount all of them under a specific path, but you
Okay.
only use one of them. You can only reference one of those files.
Would it always be the first one, or?
No, like you specify which one, but you can only reference one, and this doesn't make sense. Like,
So
why
what's
would
the
you allow?
point?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And
Okay.
this is just unnecessarily complex. Like, maybe we need something simpler.
Another thing that bothers me is that you can only config this right now if it's config map. So you're forced to use config maps for this. And I personally don't like to be forced, when it comes in configuration.
So the config map is used because it needs to be mounted as a file. The group provider properties file needs to point to allow using a file type, like a file-based group provider. You need to have a file with all the group's definitions, and the whole point of the chart is to allow to manage this together with your Trino installation. I'm also wondering about, I need to check the Trino docs, because I think there is a feature of reloading those group files automatically when the file changes. So we wouldn't be able to use it if we manage this with Helm, because it would need to, you would need to run the update, and I wonder if it would force Trino to restart. I don't know.
So with
I'm just checking the docs for Trino.
Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, there is a refresh period. So we need to go back to the to the beginning. I mean, what problem are we solving? So, like, obviously we want to make it easier to use group providers.
Mm-hmm.
We want to allow users to manage contents of that file-based group provider.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do we want to support all the features of this group provider or not?
I mean, I think, like, I would need to know actually better what the common use case is, and I personally don't. Is the only problem, because it's like, if you, I would say, best idea is to always just start out with the basics, right, and then add in like custom features one at a time afterwards. But I don't know if, like, if we're taking out, let's say, this refresh period or something like that, is that something that, like, I don't think it's required, but is that like such like, does this become essentially useless if we don't have that property?
So this refresh period allows Trino to read the file again and update the groups based on the file, which is super useful because you don't have to restart the coordinator. And like, we all know that restarting the coordinator is a major pain, because you have to stop all running queries.
Yeah.
And we don't want to do this. So it would be very nice to leverage this feature. But if we're mounting a config map at the location, and we use this as the contents of the group file, Kubernetes can automatically update this file in the pod whenever the config map changes. But I'm not sure if it's possible to update this config map if it's managed by Helm, with using Helm without restarting the rest of the deployment. So the question is, do we want to manage this config map with Helm always, or allow it, or technically allow using some like any config map that's maybe managed outside of this chart. That might be a nice use case.
Okay, so we would wait totally out of this chart. I
Yes,
guess so.
yes,
So you
yes.
would just specify. You would actually specify because it could be that we provide a separate.
I mean, you use like the the administrator that's managing this Trino installation using a Helm chart.
Yeah.
Can create a config map using
Yeah.
any tools they want to.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then deploy Trino that would be using this config map, and then they could be updating the config map however they want without
Okay.
using Helm, or maybe using Helm, but like we don't actually care about that.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So where's this? So here where we map the config map. We would want to actually make this name generic, right? And then just so
I mean,
make this...
maybe we need to set some assumptions before we comment on the whole PR. Like,
okay,
can we like go back to the beginning of the PR? Is there a description in the PR, or just the author throws this out and we have to figure everything out?
I think it's more of that support group provider properties.
Yeah, so we kind of have to figure everything out ourselves. Like, what do we expect to have?
Yeah.
The reason I'm bringing this up is like we need to think about those features in a more complete way, because if we add this, then we're gonna have users coming to us and requesting different behavior from this.
Yeah.
And to make our lives easier, we need to make sure that we can change this easily in the future after people start using it. So but with keeping backward compatibility, so without breaking people's setup.
So you think as long as kind of maybe a good way that as we generalize, like trying to approach these Helm charts, that sounds like a generic like approach you can take is try to avoid over parameterizing and try to keep it generic, and then as the consistent use cases come up like over and over and over again, where you're like, this is needed because this is like everywhere and people constantly spell this wrong or get this wrong. Like at that point, this is like needed in every single time we set up the config map for group chart or just the group chart period. At that point, you start getting a little more narrow and you start actually defining more niche specific. So, okay. So I like that general kind of set of guidelines when we're especially adding something brand new like this. I think actually some of the other PRs that Ivo that you suggested for us also are new. So we can kind of bring that to our next couple ones. So do we want to like just bring that up then on the bring that up, and because there's a lot of like specifics. The only one I would say kind of makes sense are these kind of groups ones here and the custom properties here. Like,
so
I feel
let's
like
go back to the values. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we should definitely finish up reviewing this PR because we started, so we can can finish with it.
No, totally agree.
we at least know that we have one user that needs this because the author opened a PR.
Yeah.
We can assume that there's a few more, but we don't know exactly how many and how are they using this feature. I want to see. So we have the type here with the config map value.
Yeah.
We don't support any other types. So why do we need to call this out if we only have a config map type?
Well, maybe his idea was to add other ways to configure this, but from what I got from the documentation is that with the group provider properties, there is only one property that is that's required, which is the name of the factory, and all the rest of the properties are specific configuration to this factory. But here we have hard coded the name to be file.
Yeah, we could be using a third-party group provider. That's like a Trino plugin, probably.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this, but I would really suggest that we just go with our initial thought, just this to be string or maybe a file, and to have the full flexibility as a user to configure the whole thing
Yep.
yourself.
Yeah. Okay. I was at the time. So, do we want to get into this nitpickiness then? Do we need to like call all this out, or if we're just basically telling them, hey, let's actually start more, generic and like making it just essentially a file, like a file that each user defines through Helm. And this is because of this, and this, the reasons we listed. I'll also link this YouTube link, and then like call it a day, rather than picking all these different sub things that don't matter anymore.
Yeah, definitely. We should not be leaving too many comments on the PR. So actually, this is why reviews are hard.
Yeah.
Because now to prepare the best kind of response to the author, we need to suggest the alternative, and we need to sufficiently describe the alternative, which can equal to just creating another PR that would present a different idea how we can do this.
Yeah.
It might be just quicker to do this than describing it in words. So it's like usually it's best to show an example. So I'm just wondering, like, what's the best approach here? And I'm just formulating the requirements in my head for the whole feature. So like we want to be able to specify to populate the group provider properties file with something that's in the chart, like something that you can put in the values YAM file. We talked that we can allow users to just put the contents of this file there. But if using a file group provider is the common case, it needs to be able to have a file with groups that can be mounted in the pod, in the coordinator pod. So there, like, we need to figure out how users would be doing this. We need some kind of support for this in the chart. Like, you cannot. The only way of doing this outside of the chart is by using a sidecar that would a mutating webhook, and like you cannot expect regular Kubernetes users to do this because it's a it's a rather advanced thing. So yeah, it would be nice to have some way of mounting additional files in the coordinator pod, but maybe we already do, because I've seen something like this in the chart, like additional config files. I don't know, like we would have to just check out the whole chart and see if there is a feature like this already.
Yeah. Yeah. That.
So basically, we have to do a lot of work.
Yeah. This looks like it's not going to be a three review actually, after all.
I mean, so like we don't have to do this now. We probably it might not be that much work, so it might be done in a relatively short time. But I feel like we shouldn't be doing this now.
Yeah. Okay. Do we still want to just kind of like maybe update this particular this edit, because this is already kind of getting our point across that we should make this a single file. Let's build out a little bit more there, and then just say like this needs more discussion, and like let's figure out the real goals here with this, just so that we at least verify with the author like what they actually were aiming to do. And then just to be totally sure, and then if they reply back and we're all pretty much in sync about like what the goals are of this feature, then we just need to kind of be like, okay, well, as we said in our approach here before, let's make this more of a generic thing at the beginning, and then move it towards kind of parameterized, unless they come up with very good arguments as to why they were doing what they were doing. So Okay, so let me go ahead and edit
That's
this.
a very
and then-
nice way of asking for a better description of the PR.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. Let's see. So let's actually just remove this because that's getting again into the weeds of one particular thing. And let's say add these parameters that are just let me see. So to take a step back, could you provide more information on the goals of this feature? Sure. What is your reasoning? Let me actually just tag the author to make sure that they know that we're talking to them. That's, instead of just maybe thinking that we're talking to a maintainer or anybody else. Okay, so is this let me see. What are the arguments for making this detailed properties, and how does that benefit us user?
I feel that we need to be explicit about that. Trino supports probably custom group providers, and to mention that the users of the chart should be able to configure any group provider. If
Yeah,
this
that's the main concern here.
Other types of and we already talked about backwards compatibility. All right, so let's consider if we should actually add these parameters instead, and instead just add a single parameter that would encompass the entire file. This will make it easier to maintain backwards compatibility as new features, as new parameters. Let me see, as new common parameters get flushed out in future versions. Take a step back. Could you provide more information on around the goals of this feature? What are the arguments for making the more detailed properties, and how does that benefit the users of this feature? Trino can support different. And the users of the chart should be able to configure other types of providers. Does that sound good?
I feel that by saying encompass the entire file from the first paragraph, we may confuse the author what we are talking about. Are we talking about the file that provides the groups that right now is built from key value pairs, or are we talking about the property file?
Yeah, let me see. So just had a single parameter that would encompass the entire Kubernetes configuration. Wait, say a single parameter encompass the entire. We'll say group provider configuration, not the entire file. I didn't mean to just say the group provider configuration, which falls within the config map and the deployment.
Yeah, I do just to be explicit. It's always good to be explicit.
Yeah, I know. My brain's not picking up on things, so it's like I'll say something and I don't realize that it's not it's not easily grokkable. Okay, so this will make it okay. Sounds good. Any other suggestions on your side, Jan?
Nope.
Okay, let's update the comment there, and then I'll just like provide that review. Basically, just be like, this PR needs a little more discussion. We added some comments, questions that should be the first step to be addressed. All right, and then, well, wait, did you say, Jan, did you say it's like rude to say request changes? I just feel like request, it's rude. I don't.
It's not rude, but it's like it's a blocker for the PR, so it's a signal to the author that it's not going to be merged as is. So,
but it's not.
Like, I mean, yeah, but my point is that the comments should make it very clear what kind of changes are being requested. So I wouldn't use it if you just want to keep discussing the scope.
So it's kind of like whenever you're like talking to somebody, you say kindly, and then you say something that's not so kind.
It's just about managing expectations. So
yeah,
if you can be clear about expectations and like you can communicate this clearly, and you have high hopes of the author understanding this, then you can request changes, because then you can expect them to follow your guidelines.
Okay. Is that how? And I just to get a consent, a quorum here, right? Ivo, how do you get the same like when you're getting? I don't know if you get a lot of PRs going through GitHub or not, but like when you're doing a PR, even like you're at VMware and all of this stuff, like is there a similar feeling you get around like request changes versus comment?
Well, my experience is very small on this side. I mean, I did a lot of open source before starting university, but here at VMware, I've only had to deal with 2 or 3 PRs, and we just said we have this implemented on our fork, and we would like to merge it, and they were pretty happy. I mean, they just approved, and we merged. We didn't have any kind of discussions there.
Okay, gotcha.
But we also tried to really hard to have extremely descriptive overview of the change, why we want to do it, describe how it's tested, and basically everything. Give full context and be explicit about everything.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it's interesting policy, and it's good policy. I think what we will probably, I mean, I'll probably just try to keep that in mind, because if it's people that I know on my team, like they know me and they know I respect them and all this stuff, but like I guess people more generically in open source, I don't want to give them the impression that like I think their work is bad or anything like that. I talked to this with David Phillips a while back. I can't even remember which episode it was, but it was on the Trino community broadcast, and he was talking about like, yeah, it's just really hard to like, you know, you got to constantly keep in mind that like there's this human on the other side that like could be their very first like foray into open sourceness, you know. And so and I'm very cognizant of that, but I guess sometimes things feel like they're so literal, like to request a change makes more sense to me. But yeah, like I guess there's interesting like subtext of like signaling, especially culturally in like a particular tool like GitHub that people get accustomed to, and they're like, oh, this jerk's requesting changes, I can't believe it. But it's the exact same text, and maybe it's a comment, then it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess we can have this civil conversation, and now that they didn't request changes from me.
You can think about this one step forward, like what the author is supposed to do when they see that you're requesting changes. Like if you're making your request very clear, and they can just go ahead and implement this without thinking about it too much, then it's fine. If they won't be sure what's actually requested and what change they have to make to get this accepted, then it's just confusing.
Got it. Okay.
One question to you guys: do you have templates for PRs? Because I believe having a template will definitely help with structure about the overview of the PR.
Yeah, we have it in the main repo, right?
Yeah, but templates are very hard to agree on.
Yeah, they're hard to agree on, and I would also say that not many people
Follow
that are
them.
not, yeah, not a lot of people just be like, oh, why is this text in my way?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
uh,
Yeah,
and
again,
so
this is managing expectations, so it's kind of hard to come up with a template that's very clear of what you're supposed to do with it.
yeah,
Uh, like if you're asking a question and you want some answer, and like people people need to be able to understand this question in a few seconds. If it
yeah,
takes too long, they're just gonna ignore it and leave the empty template in the PR description and won't actually bother with writing any kind of description.
yeah,
So you might be decreasing the chances of getting a PR description.
yeah.
I see.
There is sometimes where it's like the one that we use in releases, or like sorry, not releases, but PRs. Is when you are it's trying to decide if it's like a docs only thing, and or something that is like maybe a test change or something that's never going to see a user. Then you mark one thing, and then there's like another one where it's like kind of pseudo user facing, but it kind of impacts them a little bit, but not a direct API hit. And then there's like direct API hit. So it's like those options, that's a pretty quick set of options, and you just have to click X. You don't have to like type out any full response to that. But asking somebody to give a full description is like, I imagine most people just, if they weren't going to already, like Jan said, that might even just deter people, because they're like, oh, words and my time and all this stuff. So yeah. So anyways, so I think it's one of those things that we'll have to kind of, in an open source community anyways, when you're on a team, you obviously could be like, I'm not merging your PR until or else you're doing this. Whereas like open source, again, we're dealing with a lot of people trying to collaborate on something with very limited and volunteer time. So it's like I don't feel like being quite as like well, holier than thou, and I'm not merging your stuff until you make it
Hmm.
this perfect way for
Yep.
me. You do have to have a little more leniency, and kind of, as long as the code is correct and valid, and maybe you can add a couple nits here and there, but it's like you can't go crazy on the nits, and you can't be like expecting them to follow a process like you would within a smaller team, in an enterprise kind of context. So okay, I think we beat the hell out of this this PR. Let's see if we can at least get two. Yeah, let's move on to the next one. I feel pretty good about that, and we'll maybe return to that one in a couple Trino Tuesdays. If not, we'll try to get to. Hey, this is the same CCCS Nick. So, do you know that, Ivo? Is this just you like using your position to like be like, hey, my friend CCCS Nick needs his PRs looked at?
But
Wait, or did it? No, no, no. I didn't go to the wrong one. That's actually the problem.
yeah, I was going to say that this is probably the same pair.
Not the same one. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Now it's just me being inept at looking at things. Okay. 60. Now this is Ryan 44 hash 4, like hash code 44. Anyways, problem when using password authentication, HTTPS is required. However, when a value for the HTTPS port is configured, the service cannot be accessed at this port. Solution expose HTTPS port. This looks like a hopefully small one.
Hmm.
And they get the CLA bot check. Yay. Okay, so this person did do the CLA bot check. Great. And then we didn't do anything after that. So, but these are two very small changes. So this isn't a lot, very taxing on my brain. So that's great.
Hmm.
Um, so this is just going to go into coordinator. It would not go into deployment because we essentially well, okay. Actually, question though, would it go in deployment because is there Aren't there HTTPS modes where there's cross chatter between deployment?
Let me explain that quickly. So
Okay.
the change in the deployment is about it's actually defining the port in the container that's in the pod in the template in the deployment.
Yeah.
So and those ports in containers don't matter. They're not used for anything. There's just indicators that this pod is exposing something on a specific port. And you can use it when debugging your applications in a cluster, and maybe you have a lot of them and you don't remember which pod is using which ports. So but it might be a nice add-on, but like let's start with the service first, because this is
the inside.
Yes, the service matches what we just read in the description of the PR. So this would actually allow to reach this port in the pod. So the service is mapping internal Kubernetes
let's say 443,
name,
right?
like a host name with a specific pod using labels.
Okay, and let me see. Target
So
port.
we can to get more context. Let's compare this with the other port for HTTP. If you can expand the previous lines in this file.
This one?
Yeah, click on this one. So we have this adds a second port because we already had one. And for the HTTP port, so it has
it didn't follow the convention
target
here.
Port, it's using the name. Okay, so this, what I just said about the container might be actually used here, because in the target port we have instead of a number we have a name. So I guess this would be the name of the container port that's defined in the pod template in the deployment. So maybe that does matter, but this is just for consistency, and it's perfectly fine. We have the same protocol. We have matching name. The order of those properties is different, which annoys me because
same. That was the first thing I noticed when I pulled that up.
It's not consistent. There's no reason to have a different order. So we have the same properties in different order. Just matching HTTPS for whatever we have for HTTP.
Is it possible? Is it possible that you would want to disable HTTP and only enable HTTPS too?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. So if we have a condition for HTTPS, if we're adding a condition for HTTPS, maybe to make it consistent, we should also have the same condition for HTTP. But let's get back to that later, because this is a nitpick. The thing that I noticed is that we're using a different, we're getting the HTTPS port from a different object in the values. So HTTP comes from values service port, and HTTPS comes from values server config HTTPS port. So to get more context about this, like why, we should check out the default values YAML file and see how HTTPS is being defined there, because maybe this is expected. So I'm not assuming anything, and you can clearly tell that I don't know anything about those charts. Because I don't use them a lot, and I don't remember how the values YAML file look.
Let's see. Username, password.
That was server. The server section anywhere here.
The top.
Is this one up here?
Yep.
Okay. So let's config. So there's the HTTP one here. Why is there? Let me see. Server. Hold on.
So was there a reference for a service section for the HTTP?
Let me see.
Where did we get the HTTP port from?
Service
section. Yeah. So we have two different sections here.
Service, right here. And then so this is really where we should be probably adding in the.
That might be just highlighting a different kind of problem that we have on this overlap here in values YAML, that we just have to define ports in two places. Maybe we want to address this also, but maybe we don't want to do this in this PR.
Okay.
If this,
Let's just do a quick well, we can, I guess we can't really do a comment. Is there a way to do a comment
no, no.
when it's not
Yeah,
covered?
you can't comment on files that were not modified in a PR.
Sure. I'll just make a link
But you can
and
link,
point to
look,
this.
you can link
Yeah.
to it and just add a generic comment on the whole PR, not to any particular change.
Yeah.
By the way,
do that.
one thing that I would like us to do is to check if the HTTPS configuration is also used at the container level definition in the pod. Because at least in my experience is that whenever you have service deployments and other kind of objects, it's also good to have the same configuration explicitly down to the container as well.
Mm-hmm.
See. All right, we got to wrap this up in 10. Let's see if we can do it.
I actually have to leave a little bit earlier.
Okay. I think we have a good idea of what to add here anyway. So basically, we're gonna add our nits about adding the if around there, getting the things aligned, the kind of like the properties aligned and things like that. I think the real problem here is actually something that needs to get addressed in a different PR that will point out at the top of this review, and we'll basically say, hey, this is actually like a bigger problem. I'm going to create an issue, and I think this should be resolved in a separate PR before we actually get to that. Are those the three things we want to basically point out about this PR, or is there anything else that I missed?
Can we go also the other way around?
We should
much.
We should avoid expanding the scope of this PR. So like we should, if we can, we should avoid asking the author for doing like addressing issues that are not like that we just spotted when reviewing this. But
so make a separate issue and then just kind of refer to it, and that's
yeah.
Okay.
So my only concern is like if we look at this condition, this if. Can we use the port from the server section here instead of using the port from the service section? That's my only question. And we should be able to answer that on our own. And maybe it's fine. So because the service section here is very small, it has a port here. So I don't know, like, are you expected to change it if you're enabling HTTPS? Should there be multiple ports here defined? Like we need to figure this one out.
Yeah.
Or maybe we should just stop using it. I mean, it has a type. I expect people to have some use cases for changing the type of the service. Maybe for load balancer, that would be a very good use case if you don't use an ingress controller, but you just want to expose load balancer services in your cluster.
Yeah, in general too, right? Like having these two separate ones, like having the ones up here. Where is it? This one that's sitting inside the server, like that to me is kind of like it's like there's separate abstractions actually, and you should only be defining things that will define service, or I mean, if you want to basically make anything that gets assigned to this port, what gets assigned to the other service, we should be using this property, re-referencing this property as a kind of daisy chain. Like, so whatever you set here by default, the default will be to be set it here and then maybe allow to override it, right? It's kind of one of those like overridable parameters.
I think that the server, isn't this actually the configuration for the actual container and pod?
Yes.
That we'll be running?
Yes. It's used for configuring Trino to listen on specific ports, and this is going to be exposed in the container. So, and then we have the service that can use different ports and map to different ports in the container. So the question is, do we want to allow users to use different ports in the service and different ports in the container? Yes, this is a common thing for different reasons. We don't have to go through all of them right now. So I think the question for this PR is, how do we define additional ports in the service section? Because right now you can only specify one port there, and this PR is about using multiple ports in the service.
Yeah.
So we should figure out how to do this, in a backward compatible manner, if possible.
So it would just kind of like maybe initially try to use, like, we could have it set to where it tries to use this port. If that's not set, then it kind of uses the.
Well, you can't. So if you want to have both HTTP and HTTPS enabled at the same time, and like if we allow it, if the chart allows that, and looks like it does right now, you have to have you have to have a way of defining both ports for the service. And right now it's not possible, and this PR doesn't make it possible, and it should. That's the problem.
Got it.
So you can leave a comment here in the service file in the condition that it should be using a value from the service block instead of the server block.
Yeah, probably we can also add the reason that the service and the server to separate resources after the chart buttons.
Yeah, so now the thing to figure out is how to, like, we can suggest a solution to the author of the PR if they want to define new ports in this block. Like, how do they do that? Do they rename this existing port? Because you're gonna end up with a HTTP port and an HTTPS port. So is it fine to rename the existing property? Probably not. We don't want to just add we don't want to have a service port and service HTTPS port because this would be inconsistent. So maybe we just need to introduce two new properties and deprecate the old one. So it would still work, but it wouldn't be mentioned in the values YAML file. But this is just like something that popped up in my head. I'm not sure if that's fully correct because it's kind of late here and my head works slower right now.
Nice. Yeah, totally get it. Both you and Ivo are on the later side of the globe. Okay. I think this is just a good start. Like, let me see. So I think just let's get their initial reply.
You should add a sentence like this, like we need to figure out how to define more ports in the service section. That's the important bit.
I would suggest to keep the port, so we have the backward compatibility. But if you want to have an HTTPS port, just go with HTTPS port, maybe, or port. Yeah, HTTPS port. Sounds better. Maybe.
So right now we have a very one-to-one mapping of the service section in the values YAML file with the actual service resource in Kubernetes.
Yeah.
Maybe let's just keep doing this because maybe we don't need to add another layer of abstraction here.
Okay. Yeah. It basically just becomes defining our own YAML.
So maybe we should allow specifying the port both as a single value and a list. I don't know.
But if it's a list, how do you know?
It needs to map to ports in containers. So maybe not a list, but like a dictionary of some kind of objects. This is the thing to figure out, like the particular syntax of this.
I personally don't have experience with such configuration in Helm chart, but maybe we can look at some well-known charts and see when they support both type of ports, how they did it.
Yeah, and we also need to keep this simple because like we don't need to have a generic list of ports like every service in Kubernetes do, because we know we are only going to use two, like HTTP or HTTPS. There's a very small chance that there would be yet another kind of port in Trino added in some future.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that, we're out of time for this Trino Tuesday. So I think I'm just gonna add this as a single comment for now and not even do a review. And we'll see what the author says. And just kind of follow up a little bit later on that. Yeah, unfortunately, we weren't able to like actually put a bow on any of these yet. They're tricky, and that's actually, I think, a good thing to also like point out and show. Like, it's not always immediately clear. And if you're writing PRs too, try to think about it from the lens of like, how do I get people to understand what I'm going for here, why I made certain choices, and because we kind of just assume if you didn't put that, you probably didn't make any choice for any particular reason, and we just have to guess what your possible small reason might be, and that we should probably convince you otherwise. But maybe there's a good reason that like this is being done the way it is. So it's always hard to say. But anyways, I think that's good. We'll call that a wrap. Let me here take this down. Ivo, thanks for joining us. Again, this is like I mean, this is the kind of stuff I'm hoping we get to do a lot more, where we can just bring different folks on and they bring in their perspective. It is kind of interesting to hear you bounce off and kind of make these small suggestions to see if we're looking in the right spots, essentially. And you know, Jan, as usual, you're the helm master, even though you hate it so much.
Well,
So-
that's nice. Another person who really hates it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's gonna be good. I'm still bugging Ashar, by the way. Anybody who's been watching these, hoping that they start seeing a lot more momentum on the GitHub stuff. Ashar's still kind of in and out right now, and so I will be reaching out to him in the next couple days to basically just figure out, you know, what's our next steps. So okay, great. Well, let me see. Stop sharing, and then yeah, I will see you guys next week. All right.
Yep. Thanks. Bye.
Cool. Right.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.